Hi, everybody. My name is Buddy Gott. Welcome to Buddy's Writing Show, episode 30, kind of a milestone episode. And because of that, I'm happy to have with me my friend, the very talented Scott Richards. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Scott's a return guest to the show. Scott, you were one of my first guests on the show. I
Yeah,
forget what
yeah.
episode it was,
I
but
think it was four, but I may be wrong.
I think you're right. I think you're right. And since that time, though, you've been a busy, busy guy. Back then, I knew you were working a job and you were writing, and now you are a full-time writer and full-time dad, correct?
Correct. Yep.
That is
And
fantastic.
it is more than enough to keep you busy, let me tell you.
I'm sure, because I know your baby is just a little under a year old, right?
Yeah, and she decided that she was going to start walking at 10 months just to make things that much more difficult.
Oh, and belated happy birthday to you. Your birthday was yesterday, I
Thank
recall.
you. Yes, it was.
Yeah, just turned 21, right?
I did. I did.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, I got so wasted.
Well, it's nice to be able to finally use your ID in a bar and everything, and and drink.
Exactly,
And that's the
exactly. It's
first.
like
I would assume the first time you ever had alcohol, then too.
in my whole life. Yeah, in my whole life. I had a beer and a half and I was done. I was dancing on the bar, taking my
Wow.
shirt off. It
Well,
was crazy.
it's definitely a magical time for you, my friend. That's fantastic. I'm very happy for you. Hey, and speaking of your writing, you have we got a lot to talk about with your writing. I want to talk first about your current series that you're publishing, and that would be the Darlichi Shroud series, correct?
That is correct. Yep.
Okay. Could you mind telling the viewers a little bit about that?
No, don't mind. So the Darlichi Shroud series is the basically it is the grand conclusion of the story that is begun with the Before the Shroud story arc. That was the first serial that I started. In the Darlichi Shroud, it centers around book one, Guardians of the Shroud, centers around Josh, who is a teenage empath, so he can sense other people's emotions. It's sort of like a telepath.
Oh, cool.
Um, he lives in an abusive home, and so there's dealing with absorbing the emotions of his parents and all of that. And when enough is finally enough, and he runs away from home, he's taken in by a group of teens that have been waiting for him. And they basically take him in and let him know that he's meant to join them, and they all have a purpose. They defend humanity from Shroud Beasts. So,
Awesome. That sounds
yep.
really interesting.
It's actiony, and then a little bit in, um, there is a bit of murder and mystery, and
Ooh.
so right when Josh thinks that he's found a place, all of a sudden things just get turned upside down, and now he has to investigate because his team is getting picked off one by one, and it's very scary.
Oh, cool, cool. And you had told me now there's two books out right now, and it's right now it's planned to be five books in the series. Is that correct?
Yes, 5 books should complete the story. It is a large, overarching plot.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this then. Now before the Shroud, I know, like you said, that was your first serial that you had out, and that was the end of last year.
Mhm.
And now it's Darlichi Shroud is related to that, obviously. Can you read Darlichi Shroud? I mean, not that anyone wouldn't want to read the whole thing, but if they just pick, because I know like you have the first book for Darlichi Shroud out free right now,
Mhm.
could they just pick it up and read it, or they should really just go ahead and start from the
Yeah.
beginning?
No, it's meant to be its own series. You can just pick up the first one and just read the series. It'll be a complete story. You'll be able to understand everything. It's all there. The Before the Shroud is just it's the start. It's how the whole world came to exist in the way that it does. Because in the Darlichi Shroud series, there's basically an invisible barrier that protects mankind from all of these insanely wild creatures of nightmare. And sometimes it gets thin in areas, and one of these shroud beasts will slip through and just start murdering people, and that's
Oh
what
wow.
Josh and his team, these people that are born with innate abilities, they go out and they stop them, to protect mankind. But it's like, where did the shroud come from? Why are there shroud beasts? Why is all of this the way it is? And that's what Before the Shroud is meant for. It's meant to explain all of that. So you don't need to read it, but it's definitely worth it if you do.
Right.
And I've also dropped little hints, like little Easter eggs throughout the book, so that if you have read the Before the Shroud series, that
Hmm.
you'll be able to pick up on that on the reading of the Durley, kind of little rewards for doing
Yeah,
all that reading.
I love that kind of thing. Like from my favorite authors when they throw that in there, where like it's like I'm privy to like some cool inside references and stuff like that. That's
Mm,
fun for a reader.
yeah, exactly. And I've always liked that myself when I read other things, so I was just like, it'll be a fun little thing. Just don't call attention to it. It's just the people, they get it, will get it.
Exactly, exactly. Oh, that's awesome. Well, those both sound fantastic. So I wish you luck with the new one and with Before the Shroud too. And you've got other stuff out there. I know one of the things we talked about last time when you were on, it was a series that you were in the middle of, I think, when we talked, but it was Spiritually Deficient.
Yes.
Yes. And if I saw correctly on Amazon, correct me if I'm wrong, please, but you have, is it the first episode right now? Is it available for free? And then people can buy the whole season? Is that the way you have it set up, Scott?
Yeah, I have it at 99 cents because getting it perma free on Amazon is difficult. Um,
Yeah, yeah, it is.
I actually have a bundle pack available online that it's just the Scott Richards collection volume run, and it's got the first episodes of each of the three serials. So Before the Shroud, Spiritually Deficient, and Landon's Prison. So it's got the first episodes of each of those into one pack, and so you can pick that up for 99 cents. So that way you can kind of test and see what
Oh,
you like and
wow.
what you don't like, and then you can go buy the full season for whatever you like.
Oh, very, very cool. Now, Spiritually Deficient, that's a fun series. That's definitely fun. For those who aren't familiar with that, I just seeing that smile on your face, and I was talking about before, I know you love writing that. Can you,
It makes me so happy.
well, it's fun stuff. So, for those who aren't familiar with that, can you kind of share what Spiritually Deficient's about?
Okay. So, in all of the like horror films and books and everything where there's like some demons or evil possessing spirits or ghost haunting this, that, or the other. And in most of them, these entities can't be destroyed. They instead get trapped into some kind of container, like a bottle or a box or some kind of jewelry box, something like that.
Right, right.
And so I just, because this is the way my brain works, randomly one day I was just like, who watches all those things? And that's how the story began. And so I created this whole secret order, and there's this guy, John Catcher, and he's just been doing this for so long that he's burnt out. He's actually become burnt out on horror and darkness and evil, and it's just whatever.
I remember him being not the happiest of guys at the beginning of that
Yep.
series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The rest of his team basically grounded him. He's now no longer allowed to work in the field, so he basically has to stay at home and play babysitter, and he's not very happy about that at all.
And because these objects, they're not the most quiet objects in the world either. I mean, and they have like their opinions of John and such.
Yes, and they
Yeah.
they argue with one another, and they argue with John, and it was a fun idea to take these concepts because I did my research. These are all based off of actual like demon lords and mythical creatures and everything that
Oh,
exists. Like you,
cool.
yeah, and I just kind of I made them just a little immature. So it's these people that have just been crammed in these spaces and they can't move and they just get sick of one another and they just bicker back and forth. And
Probably how most spirits actually are, really.
that's how I like
People
to think
people
about it.
bicker
Yeah,
when they're alive, so they probably bicker when they're dead too. We could
exactly.
be
Just
we could be bickering objects, years and years and years from now, Scott.
yeah, I'm hoping that'd be
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It could be a pen or something.
I've
But
always pictured myself in more of a vase.
Yeah, you're a Voss kind of guy. Definitely, you get that class thing going on. So that's now that one I know. What now? The first series was it 5 or 6 or 7?
It was
I'm just
six
gonna keep. I'm just
episodes.
gonna keep saying numbers. How many episodes?
Six, 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 six.
Six,
Um,
six, six. Okay.
yeah, so 10,000 words each, more or less, and 6 episodes. So the full season, 60,000 words.
Oh, okay, fantastic. Now, I know you, like you said, you got book three coming out fairly soon on Derlishi Shroud. Are you going to finish up, I guess, finish that up first and then go back to maybe Spiritually
This
Deficient or one of your other things? Or kind of
this
hard to
has
say.
been, yeah, this has been something that I've been going back and forth on for at least the last month. I mean, I've wanted to. There's so many books that I need to write right now, and there's. But I think when it comes down to it, I need to just finish a series out because my original plan was to stop at three
Hmm.
of Religious Shroud, which is Survivors of the Shroud, and just pause, take a break from this series, and then go write some of the other things I wanted to write, and then I'd come back to it. But it's like I think I'm at the point where I have to start thinking about the readers and them not killing me because that would be inconvenient.
Yeah, that'd be really inconvenient. Yeah, it'd be tough for you to come back here a third time,
It
if that happened.
really would. So I am gonna pause just a little bit at Survivors of the Shroud. So it's 3 books out, so that should be enough for people to catch up on. And then I'm going back to Before the Shroud, and that's going to be a trilogy. So
Oh, okay.
it had been my first serial. That's when I was first experimenting with serials and all this thing. And I'm thinking that I may make, instead of serializing the next two, I may just make them into books.
Oh,
So
okay.
book 2 and book 3.
Hmm.
We'll see. I'll toy around with the format a little bit, but that's what I'm feeling right now. It's an epic fantasy, and I think just a full book, for each of the next two would just be an easier read. It would fit the format well,
Hmm.
unless of course everybody rages at me. Then fine, I'll serialize it. Um, so finish up Before the Shroud so that I can call that done, and then come back to Darlichi Shroud, write the last 2 books for this series, call that done, and then when nobody's looking in the middle of all this, don't tell anybody. I'm gonna
Okay.
sneak in finishing Hero,
Oh, okay. Nice.
because that was going to be 3 novellas bundled together into one, and then I was just into like a bundle, and then just sell that. And I already have the first one done because I really wanted to write it, and it won't take me long to write the next 2 novellas for it, and so I'm just going to do that just really quick. Just I'm going to distract people. I'm going to point in the other direction, and I'm going to go write really fast, and then throw it away, and then just pretend like it didn't happen and go write the rest of the shroud stuff.
Nice. You got an awful lot on your plate, my friend, but it's all pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's I there's so much. I the idea maker isn't turning off, and I wouldn't mind having a pause button for a little bit. That would be nice. Just
I
real
know what
quick.
you mean. I get ideas, and the ideas sometimes will just pop into your head out of nowhere. You
Hmm.
know, I was just like, walking down my street yesterday, and I saw some neighbor, and he's kind of an unusual guy, and I started thinking, what if I had a character sort of like him? And then it delved into like this whole big, like, bizarre murder mystery with space aliens in my head, and I'm like, okay, you've got like one thing that you're close to publishing. Finish that first, finish your
Yeah,
other series first, and then maybe deal with this guy. But that's why I've got like tons of these little notebooks around, just full of like
exactly.
ideas. You got to jot that stuff down too, because you
Yep.
kick yourself when you're like, oh man, what was that great idea I had?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And I have to do that. I have the beginnings of probably a dozen stories in the back of my head because if I as long as I keep them at the beginning, they'll just sit there and simmer, and they'll
Hmm.
just they'll work into themselves. The second I work them out any farther than that, I'll forget. If I don't get it out and down immediately, I'll just totally forget it, and I'll lose
Right.
majestic perfection. And so I have to just let them sit there and simmer until I'm ready to write one, and then I let it run free, and then I note it all down and plot it out and write it as fast as I can before I lose it.
Right, right. Yeah, and from what I recall, you write pretty quickly too.
Yeah,
When you really dive into it.
yeah. I think I get because I burn out on the story. I get impatient is what it is. So
Hmm.
by like halfway through, I'm like, oh, it's amazing. Look how much I've written. This is getting really tiresome. And then by about like four-fifths of the way through, I don't want to look at my computer. I don't want to look at the words. I don't want to look at anything. I want to just run away,
Right.
but I have to sit myself down and just finish it. Um, so I think my goal is about 5,000 words a day,
Hmm.
and
Wow.
so I keep it Monday through Friday, so that way I can kind of take a little bit of break over the weekends. And then yeah, keeping up with that, I'm able to poop out a book every 3 weeks, more or less, and then it takes about a week to edit it, more or less. You know,
That's
all
fantastic.
horrible things considered, because the
Yeah.
baby could not be letting me sleep or like have to go somewhere.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Stuff comes up for all of us.
yeah, and
So.
then and then it's off to beta readers so that they can tell me everything that they hate about it and everything that I did wrong, and then I fix it.
You might have touched on this a little bit, but so how much like outlining do you do before you start the project, or do you pretty much? I mean, I know you have your idea and you have like a whole bunch of
Right.
ideas. So do you outline some, or do you just dive in with what you have?
I when I get the idea, I have to let it simmer in the brain for a few months at least.
Hmm.
And while it's doing that, I'm thinking up of other ideas that'll go with it. You know, I'll add to the lore and I'll come up with characters that I need and how they interact with one another. And just it happens in the background. Like I'm playing certain scenes out in my head and like see how these characters interact with one another and I'll tweak it. When it comes time to finally write, um, just before I'm gonna start writing, I'll sit down and I have to use a pad and paper. I can't do it on the computer. I have to write it out physically so I can make large obnoxious arrows and write little side notes and all kinds of stuff. Um, and I'll plot basically a string of events that will take me from the beginning of the story to the end. And
Hmm.
during that process, I'll actually make connections that I didn't even realize were there. And that's when things will really start to develop is during that exact process. Don't ask me why.
Hmm.
And at that point, I have a guideline. And I mean, all in all, like if you were to add all the words together, it's probably about 100 words because I just use shorthand sentences.
Hmm.
And then I sit down and I have to write chronologically from beginning to end. I can't write somewhere in the middle and like this scene over here. I know some people do that, and that's fantastic that that works for them. I
Yeah,
cannot.
I've tried it and I can't either. And yeah, I mean, for those who could do it, that's great for you. And anybody who
Yeah.
writes or does any kind of art, you've got to do things your own way to make you happy and to make it work. But yeah, for me, it's got to be from beginning to end. I mean, I might know, of course, what the ending is going to be. I might know like some great fight scene somewhere in the middle, but I got to
Yeah.
write it beginning to end.
Exactly. And that's exactly I'm the same way through, especially like some really good powerful fight scenes. And
Hmm.
that's the kind of stuff I look forward to that keeps me going because it's like, oh,
Yes.
I'm almost to that part that I've been dying to write, and then you like get through to it, and you're like, dun, 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 and then you just get into it, and it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and you just don't even care. Yeah,
Right. Yeah, that is exciting because a lot of times, I mean, you hear like, and you'll see like in all kinds of writing advice, whether it's shows or books or whatever, that, the structure of a book, it's obvious, but it's true, beginning, middle, end. And a lot of times that middle, you've got a lot of, the explanation of things going on. And
mm,
maybe that's not as exciting I mean, everything varies from project to project, of course, but for me, I know like the beginning's super exciting, the ending is super exciting, middle is super exciting too because I'm getting to create worlds and stuff. It's awesome. But
right.
sometimes you do have to get into a lot of explaining, and you do find yourself really looking forward to getting to that really big juicy scene, whether it's a fight, whether it's a sex scene, whether it's an alien landing on your house and giving you a bag of gold or something like
Right.
that.
If I had a nickel for every time.
I know. Same here.
Those aliens, man, they are generous folk.
They get a bum rap sometimes, Scott.
Do go on. Don't let me interrupt. You were saying.
I was just saying that you do find those things to get
Right.
excited about, and I think that's part of the fun of writing. I wanted to ask you too, like, what excites you outside of writing, like in terms of entertainment related things? Because I know writers, musicians, artists, they're generally pretty passionate people. Are you like a big fan of music still? I think you used to be a big music junkie, weren't you?
Yeah, I need music when I write. But I'm the kind of, and so many people will hate me for this. I'm the kind of person that I like to listen to music. I don't memorize bands and song titles and who played with who and who did this and they were in this band and then they went on tour over here and then there were
Right.
I don't I just go, oh, I like this song. And I make playlists and I download, all this music and I go to Pandora and I make, playlists and all of that. I mean, I know what kind of music I like, and
Hmm.
I'm not ashamed of liking music, but it's like I probably couldn't tell you half the
It's
bands
like
that
all
I actually listen to.
80s boy bands, isn't that like your thing? I thought
Needs, yeah, absolutely. That just gets me so pumped. I'm just gets me so ready.
No, but I know what you mean, and I do the same thing. I love using Pandora. Just like type
Yeah.
in, whether it's the '80s or '90s or a favorite band, and oh, you get a good mix on there. And I love listening to music when I write. A lot of people I know
Oh
can't,
yeah.
and that's on there. That's cool. But and I use Spotify a lot too. I make up little playlists on there. And
Nice.
are you more of a hard rock person, Scott? I'm just curious.
You know what? I legitimately listen to almost everything except for country and rap.
That's
I
exactly how I am.
I had to be more specific. I had one I created a station, quote unquote, on Pandora that's titled Indie Rock, right? So I wanted all the obscure stuff that's not normally played on the radio. Like it's like I've listened to the radio enough. I want to hear something else, please. But then like as I liked different songs, it's like, oh okay, I know this song, I like this one, and it's gone all over the place. Now it involves classical, French
Okay.
jazz, some epic soundtrack music. I mean, it's all over the board. So then I had to go and make another station that's just basically extremely epic music.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of Two Steps from Hell?
No, but I used to call like. All right, go ahead. That reminds me of some girl I used to date, but it was
Two
very
Steps from
close.
Hell?
It was, yeah, I think it was. I was closer than two steps. But anyway, but no. What's the deal with two steps from hell?
Basically, they make everything better. If you're folding laundry and then you put on Two Steps from Hell, you're now folding laundry on the back of a dragon, sieging a castle while burning the enemy below you. I mean, it's just
Wow.
that's it's fantastic music. It's all somebody called it, I think they called it studio music or something like that. It all sounds like soundtrack music.
Okay.
They're very dramatic, dun, 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 but they have such a great feeling to them. It's you can write anything when listening to that. It gets you so
Wow.
pumped. Yeah,
Well, I made a note for myself. I put on there, two steps from hell. So
it
I'll
is.
be sure to see
There,
that and look them up.
you know what? It's a good thing that you showed me that because I was going to call you a liar to your face, but then you showed it to me, and now I can't. So
See,
good,
you'll probably
good.
find an opportunity soon to call me that
If anything, you saved us both because that would have just been awkward all the way around.
again.
But yeah, Two Steps from Hell, it's awesome. I definitely recommend it for anybody that likes to listen to dramatic music, especially when they're writing. It's just perfect.
Yeah, that's cool. That's something I've been trying more and more lately. Is maybe even like delving into like soundtracks for things. Like I sometimes I'll put on like some of the Doctor Who soundtracks because you can get them online, like on Spotify or something like that, and having that dramatic. I'm sure Doctor Who's a lot different from Two Steps from Hell, but it's good having like very passionate music while you're writing.
Right. Well, yeah. I really I would say that they're pretty much just the same thing.
Hey, we did have some live viewers right now, so I wanted to acknowledge those who were watching and have chimed in the comments. Chrissy Moss is here. She said, "Hi, Scott." LM Stahl, Patrick Stamp. Those are the ones that I see so far. I think I might have some lagging going on here, but I
You're
appreciate everyone
so.
watching and tuning in and seeing the awesome Scott Richards on here.
I didn't
Scott,
even see that. Hi, everybody. Yay. Okay, keep going.
I did want to ask you, since we talked about a few of your series, one that we have, you said the title of, but we didn't really go into detail about, is Landon's Prison. Scott,
Mhm.
is that that's complete, isn't it?
It is. That is a story that has finished because I've decided to leave it up because it is done,
Hmm.
and I like it. But all writers have that one mistake that they made, and as much as I like Landon's Prison, it was just I learned a lot from it. How I would put it that way. It was it was a lesson in falling in love with a concept
Hmm.
so much that you don't notice there's not enough story.
Oh,
You know
okay.
what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, I know. Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah.
yeah, so I mean it's great for what it is. It can't go beyond this. It's the story is complete at 5 episodes. If you like action and you like, like sci-fi and monsters and aliens and stuff, then it's great. You'll like it just fine. But it's just I had to just end the story where it did because about it's probably about 4 episodes in, I realized that I had not planned this through enough. I had just fallen so in love with the idea of the character that I just threw myself into it without looking back.
Hmm.
And I was writing as I was publishing. So
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I had already put up the previous episodes and people had bought them, and I mean they were they were reading it, so I couldn't just stop and be like, "Oh, never mind, this is a mistake. I'm gonna pull out now." Nope, it was done. It was happening, and there was no going back.
Well, look, since
So,
we said this much about Landon's Prison, what's the basic story there for people who have heard all this and they're like, "Ooh, I want to check it out."
well, again, I really love the concept. It's fantastic. That sounded so in love with myself just then.
No, it didn't, man.
Basically, what happens is Landon is a police officer on Earth,
Hmm.
and he ends up, spoiler alert, he ends up getting shot in the line of duty and dies. And he wakes up basically trapped in the body of this creature. Um, the premise is that these aliens, far in the future, far distant, have been trying to create the perfect, genetic hybrid living weapon thing. And in an attempt to make it smarter, they had come upon Earth and found that, and basically came upon his DNA and spliced it into the creature to try to make it smarter. But what happened was, have you ever? I realize I probably should have started off with this question. Have you ever heard of the idea of genetic memory?
I'm not sure I have.
It's the rough theory that your memory is actually encoded in your DNA.
Oh,
So
okay. Yes, then I have. Hmm.
yeah. So this is just, I mean, this is a wild, just play with it idea. So they had taken some of his DNA and spliced it into the creature, but instead of making the creature smarter, Landon became this thing's subconscious. So
Oh.
he's trapped in the body. He doesn't even have active use of the body. He has to sit as a witness as the creature breaks free and starts wreaking havoc on this mothership.
Oh,
And
wow. Okay.
yeah, so it's this whole struggle. So Landon's prison is basically this incredible monstrous creature.
Well, that's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome.
Right? I totally loved it. I thought it was the best thing ever. But then I
And it can
realized
still be this awesome work and stand by itself, you know. So
exactly.
that's fantastic. That's
Eh,
fantastic.
Yeah, I may have to steal the character and use it later. Like maybe as like a side character in like another story that happens in the same universe.
Yes, now that kind of thing. I love when authors do that. You know, you mentioned
Yep.
the Easter eggs, and
Exactly.
having Easter eggs is great, but having that kind of stuff is fun too. You ever read Christopher Moore?
What stuff has he done?
He's done a lot of things like he does. I guess they're considered more like paranormal stories with a lot of humor thrown in there.
Okay.
He had a couple of vampire books, other things like that. But he'll do that. He'll have
I
like
don't think
characters from like one book show up like 3 books later, and they might just be like walking down the street for one scene. But if you're a fan of his stuff, you know, because I think I picked up the first book of his I picked up was probably like the fifth book he wrote, and I saw. I guess if I'm reading around online, I saw that he had done that, and I'm like, I'm just going back and just reading his stuff from the beginning.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, because I love when authors do stuff like that. So yes, maybe Landon can show up later on for you.
There you go. and it would be awesome.
I'm sure it
Or
will be. It will be because you're an awesome guy and an awesome writer. And you know what? We're about a half hour mark here, Scott. So I think we're going to wrap it up. But I thank you so much for coming on the show again.
yeah, this has been tons of fun. I really appreciate you inviting me on.
Oh, my pleasure, man. I really appreciate you being on, and I wish you luck with the Darlichi Shroud series. And what's the first one in that series, Scott? If people want to go and check it out, because I know right now, I don't know what it's going to be like tomorrow or even 5 minutes from it now, but I know earlier the first book is free on Amazon.
Correct. Guardians of the Shroud. It is free on Amazon, Kobo, Barnes and Noble, just all over the place.
Yeah, didn't you do that yesterday was your birthday? Didn't you do that because of your birthday? I thought I saw you post that.
Yep. And then I made the second one yesterday. I made the second one 99 cents for my birthday.
Well, you're a
So
generous guy. You're a generous guy.
I gave you something for my birthday. You're welcome, America. It's,
And world, and the entire world.
and world, the whole world. Just you're welcome. But now that my birthday is over, you don't get it anymore. Now it's back up to 2.99. Missed it
Awesome.
by that much.
By that much. So, Scott, if people want to check out your stuff online, obviously under your name there, you have your website, www. Talk for a second so we can see it. Shroud Between.
Yes, the shroudbetween.com.
Okay. And also, are you still active on Twitter or not so much?
I have Twitter. I check it occasionally. I'm not terribly active. I'm more active, admittedly, on Google Plus.
Gotcha. Yeah, Google Plus. That's picking up some steam lately, don't you think?
It has been, and I enjoy it probably more than any other social media. But I mean, you can still contact me over Twitter. I still, frequent it. But
Gotcha. Well, people check out Scott at those places. Check out his books on Amazon or whatever place you buy ebooks and paper books from. And Scott, again, happy belated birthday. Congratulations on becoming a full-time writer, full-time dad. I know that's the life that you've been wanting to live for a while, so I'm very happy for you.
yes, definitely. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Everyone who's watching the show live, and if you're checking it out later, thank you so much. You can find me at buddygott.com. And if you're new to this channel, like I said, this is episode 30, so I got a whole bunch of episodes in the past and a whole bunch coming up. I do one every week. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks again, everybody. Thank you, Scott. And everybody have a great night.
Thanks. Bye.